Hey, it's the Brian and Kendra Show. Thanks for listening here on the radio and on Facebook and all those fun places and YouTube. We're
everywhere.
Yes, we're everywhere.
We're on Spotify.
Yes.
I don't do Spotify. I'm too old for that.
I don't think I've got that.
You have Christmas music on in your truck sometimes. You don't even know what you have on. You just have noise.
It's noise. That's correct.
You just do noise. Well, I don't know Spotify. Like, I'm just dumb, I guess. I don't know. And the other day at family lunch, my nephew goes, "What? Aunt Tenor has a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, Aunt Tenor does for a couple of years." And he goes, "Like, she's on Spotify?" And I said, "Let me ask Nathan."
So when we was talking to the Fargo senior class, as soon as we said, we're on the podcast, you could hear they were looking at each other like, what? So you don't have to be famous to be on the podcast.
When we left, they were like, do they know they're not that cool?
Yeah.
Do they know
Nobody asked for my autograph.
Only 13 followers?
Yes.
But we only pay a couple of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a guest today. We have Jake Persall.
Yes.
With JCP Services.
Correct.
Like, I always want to put in a couple extra words there. JCP Pest Control, JCP Pest Services, JCP.
Irrigation services, lawn services,
I mean, for
maintenance.
real. Like, you kind of do a little bit of everything, which is why it's good that it's just JCP Services.
Yeah, leave it generic for a reason.
Yes, but for some reason, generic just doesn't work in my mind for your particular company. Okay, but here's all the things you've done for me. Termite. You've done, I know that you do irrigation, and I know my brother has worked with you even before with your irrigation stuff. I don't think you do that as much now.
No,
I think you're kind of tired of that game.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but you're my favorite lawn sprayer because your precious wife is why, because I love her to pieces. And she'll say, "Kendra, did you mean for us to do this?" And I'll say, yes, I did. And she says, "Which house?" And I say, "Yes, exactly." I love her. And then I say, "Wait, Ethan has to get all those leaves up." And she's so cool about it. Mm-hmm. I just appreciate that. So
it wouldn't work without her, that's for sure.
Well, it's a team, isn't it?
Exactly.
But you've expanded what you do, and you have so many different things. So you run through the list of all the things that you really do under your hat of JCP Services. What services do you provide? That's the real question.
So for years we've done kind of weed and pest control, kind of tried to specialize a little more in termite and then a lot of weed control, and then within the last year we've added home inspections to the list of services. Which
is fantastic. So we have great home inspectors locally.
Correct.
And I think that's kind of a big deal for our location. I mean, sometimes out here in Woodward, it feels like we don't really get to choose who we use because we are kind of limited on service providers. But we have good home inspectors. And so you saw a need, though, because even though we have a couple of there's not quite enough.
Right, yeah.
And so you saw a need when you were doing your termite inspections. Is that right? And is that how you ended up doing homes?
Yeah, yes.
You're there anyway. Well, get 2 checks instead of 1.
Well, and it's kind of like, I'm already there, so, I might as well see how much I can, help out the process.
Well, and it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I enjoy it. I like looking through
crawling
houses.
Crawling through attics and basements and crawl spaces.
And, yeah.
I always say they're going to find something wrong because it's what we pay them to do. So you like looking for problems.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to talk about what a home inspection really does look like and how that works. And then you can kind of discuss a little bit toward the end of the show. We'll talk maybe about cost efficiency, what it looks like with you doing more than one service at a time, if that makes any difference. So we'll get into termites a little bit, but we're not going to talk about termites until a second show. We're going to have you on for 2 different shows. So today, mostly focusing on home inspections. Okay, so as realtors, you said a minute ago, Brian has so many cups of coffee and how much it takes to be a real estate agent. We just want to know how much coffee you have to deal with real estate agents.
In our market, I get along great with all the real estate agents. Everybody is great to work with. So
we have the best in Woodward, don't we?
Yes, I agree. I don't
like every office has the best. Like we are as a collective group of agents, really, really good agents. And I really don't think that there's probably many home inspectors that go, I hate working with real estate agents, because I think they recognize the value of this collaborative relationship.
And I haven't worked in the bigger markets, but I feel like here, everybody has their client's best interest in mind.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like anybody's out, for their own agenda. It feels like they're working for their clients.
Absolutely.
So it's a great market to work in.
So before we started the show, I showed you, I have a standard, I don't know what I'm saying. I have like this little text that I save in my notes, and every single time that we have a buyer, I send this exact same message to every buyer that says, okay, now it's time for your inspections. This is what's available. These are the providers. This is an approximate cost. I don't give them exacts unless I have a very specific price sheet. And then I can tell them this is what they say based off of this. And so I showed that to you because I always want inspectors to know how we do this.
Right.
Because I think sometimes it looks like we are swaying toward one. We don't. It does happen that a buyer will say, well, who do you see the most? Well, unfortunately, that tends to mean that they're going to pick the one that we see the most. But I say, it doesn't matter. All of these are great. Here's their prices. This is how it works. Who do you want us to call? Mm-hmm. If they're local, they tend to already know somebody. Mm-hmm. And we love that because then they feel like they have their own trust built.
Right.
And so that's super awesome. But home inspections are crucial in the home buying process because we don't know. We've never lived in the home. The seller, like we joke, but it's not a joke. It's so serious. The real estate property condition disclosure says, it asks a million questions and it says, is this a normal working order? And what we have found is that my normal, your normal, and Brian's normal are all different normals. Like things that I put up with that I'm like, oh, it's always been that way. It's not a big deal. Brian would be like, this is flipping, driving me crazy. Mm-hmm. So in comes you, right? This is why we would have a home inspection.
Right.
So tell us what you do in a home inspection.
Well, so, I'm kind of an unbiased third party. I'm not making the emotional decision. It's not my house that I've lived in for 50 years that I, have to sell or don't, whatever the situation is, or I'm not buying my dream home. So I'm emotionally disconnected from the transaction.
Right.
So I'm just looking for, any safety issues with the house or mechanical issues or just any problems that might arise, and it's not exhaustive. I can't, we're not breaking open walls to
not predictive,
not
psychic.
predictive, but we're just, I can look at things through an objective eye that maybe a buyer can't, or just through experience and training can recognize problems that, the potential buyer may not be able to recognize. So
this last week, I've had a couple of different people ask me about, and I don't even know if I say it right, but testing for radon gas. Is that something that we do here, and why don't we?
No, it's not. And so radon's radioactive gas that comes from, I believe it's granite that has
right.
And we don't have the granite down deep that releases that radioactive gas into so it's not a thing around here that I've ever been aware of. So.
I wanted to just hit it right off the bat, like get it out of the way. Check. We don't really have an issue, so we don't really test for it.
Right.
And what I have found, like Wichita, you would test for that in Wichita, especially if you have a basement. Is that right? Did I make that up?
We did not. Stillwater, yes.
Oh.
Not
Interesting.
Wichita, we did not, because we didn't do any inspections.
So I just made that up. I just pulled that right out of my hat, like I knew what I was talking about.
Maybe we should have. We should have tested for mold. That's one thing we should have tested for, but we didn't.
Do you test for mold?
I do not. And
that was not a trick question because I don't think I don't know that any of the home inspectors in this area do.
No. And mold's a tricky subject.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
And what's the difference between mold and mildew? I mean, that's what we're really looking at half the time, right?
You leave a piece of bread on the counter tomorrow, it's going to be moldy. There's mold spores everywhere all the time.
Right.
So, saying mold is kind of generic.
Yes.
The toxic mold that can cause health issues and stuff. I mean, those mold spores, I think, are present everywhere. It's just that the conditions are correct for it to grow,
Right.
And excessive moisture or water leaks or some of those things that cause that.
Yes.
But
you identify those things.
Right.
Hey, there's excessive water.
Exactly. Yep. But as far as specialized testing in mold, that's not something I do, and I don't you don't see a lot of those issues.
Right.
But
we don't, but man, we have a significant amount of buyers that are concerned about it. And so, and I mean, that's generally, we take them down that same path. We don't see a lot of, because what they're asking about is black mold, right? And we don't see a lot of those issues in Woodward. We have such a drier climate that hasn't really been a huge source of concern. We recognize a house that's been vacant for a number of years, been closed up, has water leaks. Maybe you might have to find somebody to inspect that because that might be a real concern. But most of our houses in our arid, dry climate are just not a concern, right? Am I wrong?
No, that's pretty typically. I mean, if the house is, if the property's in good condition and there's not extenuating circumstances causing excessive moisture, then
yes.
yeah.
I've only been, I mean, real estate, how many years and how many transactions, thousands of transactions and millions of years. No, we're just kidding.
It just feels that way on a Friday.
I can, 3 or 4 houses, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 that I remember vividly that we had mold tested, but you could see it and they wanted to test it. I'm like, well, it's right there. Like, so, and we did the pre-mold test, removed all the mold, did the remediation, retested the second time. And all 4 times was really just cut the sheetrock out, put new sheetrock in.
Right. Spray a bunch
retest,
of bleach.
Clean it with the bleach, and they brought some whatever stuff. It's probably bleach that was flavored.
Flavored
Scented. Don't try flavored bleach. Scented bleach.
Have you tried those Tide Pods?
Yeah. Those are flavored well. I'm just kidding.
Okay, well,
So,
moving on. I was wondering, Jake.
Coffee flavored. Yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's one of the things that I wondered about. I mean, I think I know the answer, but I want you to share with our people. So, to be a home inspector, what is the requirement? Like, can I be a home inspector? I've seen a lot of houses.
So the home inspection is regulated in Oklahoma
Jake just
by
panicked.
Can if you want to. If you like crawl spaces and attics.
I do not like tight spaces. Thank you.
It's Construction Industries Board in Oklahoma regulates home inspectors. So it is a licensed and regulated industry in the state. So every licensed home inspector has been tested thoroughly and is insured, has to show proof of insurance to the state. So.
Okay, I'm putting you on the spot with this one, and I apologize in advance, but I think this is super important. The Oklahoma real estate contract that we use says that a buyer can use anyone they deem, what is the word, Brian? Anyone that they believe is sufficient or appropriate to do their home inspection.
Yeah,
meaning it doesn't have to be a licensed professional. What are your thoughts with that immediately? Like, what's the first thing that comes in your mind? Knowing that you were, like a year ago, you were not licensed. Today you are. Your kid comes home and goes, Dad, I'm buying a house. I want you to come inspect my house. Help me just make sure that it's good enough. Do you feel that you would have done the same job before that you do now?
Before I went through the training and stuff required, no, I wouldn't have done because I wouldn't have known some of the issues to look for. If you're having Uncle Joe come look at your house and he's been building houses for 20 years, go for it. He probably knows what to look for. He may spot some stuff I don't know. If somebody that's a professional in the industry, but but you also have to remember sometimes you get what you pay for. And and I know before in the process of one of my children buying a house, I did a walkthrough with the real estate agent when we were looking at the house, and anyway, went back later and did the formal termite inspection. And when we did the real estate walkthrough, I didn't see any signs of termites.
Right.
But whenever I was doing the inspection, when I was focused on looking for that issue, I did. So, having that unbiased person that's focused just on looking for those issues is, you definitely want somebody you can trust to look for the issues. So,
so even my house in Wichita, and I've been through a couple of houses, and I've remodeled lots of houses. I walked through the house and we were kind of quick because we thought it was a long shot, so we didn't spend a bunch of time in this house. I missed the mold issue in the basement. I say mold. We didn't check it. We just saw this black mildewish substance. And so I bought it. And then after we buy it, my agent, I don't say anything about him, but he wasn't also informed on that area and that style of home is very common. So if I'd hired any home inspector from the area, they would have said, hey, heads up, you probably have a problem right here. Even though it was covered up real well, and we didn't see it till we started moving trim, and then it's all there. So I think, again, the right guy at the right area, you kind of know what to look for. It's like a termite guy. I see termites I walk through a house, I'm like, yeah, there's termites here. Like, I see them in lots of the houses. Of course, I'm like, let's get you a termite inspection. Let's make sure this is what this is. But I still miss it because it's not my focus. I'm doing an overview. I do want to protect my customers. I do try to find issues that can be a hindrance to the property. But again, it goes back to it's not my everyday thing. It's not my focus.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's when I'm on an inspection. I'll be in a house for 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on the house, and just looking for those issues. So I'm not.
So my 8-minute walkthrough on the house is probably not long enough to find the problems.
Sometimes you can spot them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you walk through the front door and say, "Oh, here we go."
Ain't it the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you walk us through a home inspection? I mean, I realize we only have like 10 minutes, but just generally, because you probably have a specific way that you go about doing a home inspection.
So, first, you kind of get a feel of the house from the exterior, looking to make sure that the lot's not draining water towards the house, where you're putting water underneath your house or in the foundation or whatever. Going to go around the exterior looking for any issues with siding or water, where water may be getting in around windows or anything on the outside. The roof, of course, the roof is a big expense. So, I'm not a roof expert, but I know the signs. And one thing about inspections is I'm have general knowledge in every area of the house, but I don't have a lot of specific knowledge. And so I refer those. If I see signs of problems on a roof, I'm going to, hey, you need to have a roofing professional come look at this. So, kind of do the exterior of the house and then go inside. We'll look in the attic. There can be more signs of roof problems in the attic. So we look up there, look for insulation, see lots of electrical issues in attics because of lots of DIY electricians up there working on stuff. So, look the electrical system over. We're looking for any safety hazards in the house, which typically is a lot electrical.
Yes.
That's potential to burn your house down. So, and then we're going to look for plumbing leaks, signs of foundation settling that might cause big problems later down the road. I'll note cosmetic issues. Don't, those are pretty apparent, but we don't get real deep on cosmetic stuff, paint flaking or, a little bit of stuff. But just trying to get a general feel for the whole house and just the general condition of it and any maybe anticipated big expenses that might be coming up with
I want to hit on one thing that you said because this is where we piggyback on your report. So when your report comes back and it says potential hail damage or the roof shows signs of wear or whatever, however you phrase that, and we go, okay, now look, he did note this. Would you like us to have a secondary inspection and call a roofer to look at the property? Yes. And or you show something with I can't think of anything else, but a concern with electric or a concern with plumbing. And some of them are obvious. We just need to have it repaired or replaced. Like some of it is just obvious. Sometimes you go, okay, this brings a little cause for concern. HVAC. If something is funny with the heating or the air system, then we can piggyback and say, let's get a secondary inspection from somebody in that specific field.
Right.
So we recognize that, and we help our buyers to recognize that too. Because, like you said, you have a general overview knowledge, but sometimes we need to get a little bit more. But you are what help us to find that. I can't imagine the expense of calling the HVAC people and calling the roofer and calling
plumber and electrician. And
it could get costly.
Yeah, you'd have a very thorough inspection having all those specialists in.
It would also probably destroy the house because here's the other thing that I know you see. A lot of the things that you see in our 80s houses may not be to today's code.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be until we go to change it.
Right.
But an electrician might say, oh gosh, especially the newer electricians.
Right.
Because it's different for them than it is for you.
And that's, I'm not a code inspector, so I'm not looking for code violations per se. But I do note safety concerns, like GFCI outlets are a big one. Those are, in older houses, they weren't code, they weren't required.
Right.
and I note those because they are a safety concern,
Yes.
and then the buyer can make the decision on whether
Right.
they're concerned about that or not, but that's how I see a lot of that stuff. If it's,
Right.
when it comes to code, is it safety or that sort of thing? So
Right. Well, we appreciate that. And that's what the whole purpose of the home inspection is for, is to give us that general overview. I say us, I mean our buyers. But our job is to make sure that the buyers go through that and make sure that they're comfortable with the findings. And if they have any questions, then we help them to further find another inspector who can dive more deeply into a specific subject matter. The other thing that we really like to do, and we haven't got to have a home inspection with you yet. We love buyers, but we've been very seller focused for whatever reason for a short time. I think Brian's trying to work back into buyers because, or maybe I'm working him back in. I don't know. One of us is like, we need some buyers. I missed the buying part. Buyers are a fun breed. It's fun. It's a different kind of fun than sellers.
It's an excitement.
Like it is. And so anyway, that being said, we have not got to do an inspection with you, but this is our favorite thing. So you do the home inspection. We try really hard to let you do that by yourself. But then at the end, we do our dangdest to show up, either Brian show up or the buyer and Brian show up.
Yes.
And say, okay, show us your hot spots.
Yes.
And let you show us what things to really focus on and pay attention to. Do you want to talk about that? Do you appreciate that? Do you hate that? Or you're like,
I do. I love
do you
that.
want the buyer there the whole time? How do you want us to do that for you?
So in my
No.
so in my perfect world, I get to house to myself for till basically I'm wrapping the inspection up, and then the buyer shows up, and then I can walk them through any issues. I mean, that's the perfect scenario because while it's great if they're there and follow me through the whole inspection, it makes it take a lot longer typically. So
I'm going to go about it's distracting.
Because I was walking behind
it is harder for me to focus on my job, and if you've known me at all, I can talk a lot, so it can make the inspection take a lot longer. So,
but I really think, time for you, because you're on a schedule, because you usually have another one backing up your first one, backing up your second one, backing up your third one. But it's the distraction, and sometimes we help too much. I'll never forget, I think it was Kenny. I'm trying to remember if it was Kenny Snyder or if it was
Jerry. Are you talking about the microwave deal?
No.
So Jerry,
this is different. I kept turning on all the lights. And one of the inspector goes, please quit turning on the lights. That's why I'm using the flashlight. I'm looking for something specific. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I shut the fan off on the microwave. Like I went in, I was like, man, this is noisy. And I shut it off. And he comes back in, he's like, you leave the fan on. So I remember to shut the oven off. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that.
So we distract you. But I think the other thing is because you have a very specific route that you take to do your inspections. And if you have mom and dad, 16 kids, and grandma and grandpa helping you with your inspection, it's harder to stay on track.
Yes.
And the whole purpose of this home inspection is that you get your little check boxes all marked and in the order, because I think process is so important.
It is, yes.
In an inspection. So I'm glad I'm glad we had a moment to get there, because I did not understand that. And bless their hearts, when I started, I was like, yeah, if you can be there, you should be there. I'm sorry. Those are hours I will never get back.
Yeah.
I do like having a buyer there at the end of the inspection.
At the end.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think that's so invaluable. So here's the real estate side of that. So then Brian tries to meet there too. Not everything that comes up is something that the seller is going to fix, unfortunately. And our contract reads that the buyer can ask the seller to do repairs, replacements, treatments, but that they are not required to. And then we have it almost feels like a second negotiation of our contract. But if Brian can be there with the buyer with you, it's easier for him to determine what's necessary, because some things are necessary. If we don't get this fixed, we're not getting this household. Some things are just something that might be really important to one buyer may not be important to another. And so if he can be there with you guys and the buyers, it helps us to do a better job for our customer.
Yeah.
And we think that that's hugely valuable too. Sometimes we may not read your report correctly. I mean, because that's the thing. Like, we've done this for a long time. And both of us, I always say, this is Brian's bag. Whenever it comes to inspections, I push it right back on him. I can do it. I know how. But I don't really enjoy it. I think you like it. You're like, good problems. Let's fix them.
I'm a problem fixer. So.
I'm like, oh God, there's more problems.
But a lot of it is you're going to get some real estate agents that just copy paste, put the report in the TRR and be like, I want all this fixed. And I'm like, You really want me to fix a cracked switch plate in a 1954 house? Like, what are we doing? Like, so part of the deal is I want to make sure, number one, we're asking for the right things to be fixed. So, no, it's not the light switch plate cover that's broken. It's that the box is loose in the wall, not, or whatever the thing is.
Right.
Sometimes, and so when we want to make sure we know all of the issues that you see that need to be fixed correctly. And then are they a detriment to the house or a failure to the house?
Yeah.
We have like 2 minutes, so I want to hit here. If we cannot meet you, if the buyers cannot meet you, do you have like 2 or 3 major tips for a buyer in reading your report and knowing how to decipher it?
I do. First, I'm gonna, if I'm not meeting with the buyer, I'm gonna put most everything I can that I see wrong on the report.
Expected, yes.
So. And that can cause panic.
Yes,
so,
it can.
And that's one of those things. I don't know what the buyers, I don't know what they're looking for, what they're concerned about, what they're not. So if I haven't met them. So that's one thing is don't panic if you get the report and you see the summary page with 40 items wrong on it. That doesn't mean it's a bad house.
No.
And the other one is a house there's no pass or fail in a home inspection.
Right.
That's, I get that asked all the time. Well, did it pass? Like,
I don't know. What do you think?
That's
because that's a personal
decision for them to make, not for me to make. I'm not saying whether it's a good house to buy or not. That's not my decision.
You're not in the market at that minute.
That's right. I'm not buying the house.
Right.
But I'm just telling what I see wrong with it.
Yes.
So,
very good. Anything else that you would want a buyer to know about home inspections?
I would say get one.
Yes, thank you. Us
nope,
too.
take it. Third time. Next time. I'll do it next time.
Yeah. They're it's not cheap, but
But
it
is
could
cheap
save a lot of money
considering.
down the road.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it's a $100,000 house and you spend $350 on a home inspection, that sounds pretty darn cheap to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
Because
Cheap insurance.
otherwise I'm buying, it is a cheap insurance. So I think there's so much value in it. I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, on the 3 houses I bought that I didn't get inspections, that I missed big stuff, I still probably would have bought the house. I probably would have went about my remodeling different.
Right.
So I purchased all 3 of them at the rate that I can risk.
Right.
But we spent, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars fixing the one I live in because there was stuff that wasn't right. I still would have bought the house.
Right.
I just would have, let's start with the electrical system first before we fix the walls.
Yes. And I would have bought home warranties.
Yes. Yes. See?
So, it's not that, and we just get kind of cocky, and I think in our business because we think, well, we already
I can
know.
fix anything.
And I know I want the house, and I know that the price I'm paying for it allows for me to do a couple of things, just not maybe all 3 of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we're probably about out of time, and so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But if we wanted to reach out to you to get an inspection, what would your number be?
My number is 580-334-5381.
All right. Thank you so much. We will see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks.